Hello and welcome to the Whirly Bloke channel. Today I'm going to show you a quick tip on how to arm and disarm your Vortex 250 Pro with a switch on your Taranis. Straight out of the box, to arm and disarm the motors on the Vortex 250 Pro, you use the left or throttle stick in mode 2. To arm the motors, you simply hold the throttle stick all the way down and to the right. To disarm the motors, you hold the throttle stick down and all the way to the left. As I've covered before in previous videos, this may seem like a fairly sensible way to do things, but once you start to get more adventurous, holding the stick down and all the way to the left is a fairly standard position you're going to be in a number of the aero manoeuvres, and that will of course disarm the motors and your quad will just drop out of the sky. So it's fairly standard practice to arm and disarm your quad using a switch which you've allocated on your transmitter. And although I've covered this in a previous video, I didn't actually go through in great detail about how you set that up. And I've had a couple of emails requesting that I show how we do that. I think this is one of those things that when you're a bit more experienced and you've set a few quads up, you just do without thinking about it. But when you're just starting out, it can be a bit of a head scratcher. So let's see how we set that up on the Taranis and the Vortex 250 Pro. The first thing we have to do is decide which switch we're going to use to arm and disarm the motors. It's entirely up to you which one you choose. A lot of people use switch SF. I prefer to use switch SC, only because I use the SE switch as my mode switch, and I don't want to get the two confused by accidentally hitting one when I'm trying to switch modes. Whichever one you choose, I suggest if you're flying multiple models that you always use the same switch as your arm and disarm switch, and that way your muscle memory will always take you to the safe switch to actually disarm your motors. So the first thing we need to do is make sure you've got your model selected in the menu. Hit page to take you to page 4. This is where we're going to allocate whichever switch we decide to be an input. Scroll down. I'm selecting input 6 here. Hit enter. I'm going to give it a name as an input. Hit enter to start editing. I'll call it arm. Long press the enter key to give you a capital A. You don't have to do this, but it's just tidy, I think. Okay, so we can exit out of that. Then we need to say which source we're going to be using for this input, and we're using SC. All you have to do is scroll down to the source, hit enter to start editing, and flick the switch into the position that you want. And as you can see, I'm using switch SC, and switch SC has been selected here. We can exit out of that now. Press exit again and again, and we're back to the input screen, and as you can see here, now switch SC is called the arm input. The next thing to do is go to the mixer page, which is page 5. Just hit the page button to take you there, and this is the final part of the setup on the radio. We just scroll down to, we'll say channel 6 because that's our first empty one. Hit enter to edit it. The mix name, again, I'm going to call arm. Hit enter to start editing. Just name it. Long press to give you a capital A again. Enter. And enter, and we just exit out of that. As you can see, it's already allocated arm as being the source for this mix, and I think that happens on Taranis simply because it was the next one that was allocated in the list. That's it, all set up and ready to go. So here we are, we've got our Vortex connected to our computer with a USB lead. We've got Cleanflight loaded, and we've got our transmitter turned on, the correct model selected, and we've already configured this transmitter to use switch SC as the ARM switch. So let's go to Cleanflight. Okay, first thing to do is connect to the model. Now a quick check. Yep, we are connected. First thing we need to do is to go to the receiver tab. This is just to check that Cleanflight is seeing the input switches that you've allocated on the Taranis. So if we move switch SC backwards and forwards, we can see that AUX2 in Cleanflight is moving around. I've already set switch SE as my flight mode switch, so we know that one works okay. Now we know that's working, we go to the modes tab and we need to select ARM. You click on add range, and we're going to be using AUX2, which, as we saw previously, is the one which is correctly connected to the switch on the Taranis, what's allocated to the switch on the Taranis. If we move that switch around, we see that the marker here is moving around with the switch. We need to make it so that when the switch is down, the quad is armed. So you move these sliders around so that the on position is where the marker is. Nothing's actually happening at the moment. You can see this isn't turning on, this isn't going green, because we need to save this configuration. Turn that off and we hit save. Now if I move the switch around, you can see that when it's in its low position, the quad is armed. You can see in here the motors are running. That's all you need to do in Cleanflight, and you're now ready to fly. I hope you found that quick tip useful. This is one of those things that when I was starting out, I scratched my head for quite a while. As always, if you've got any questions, leave a comment below and I'll try my very best to answer them. We'll see you next time.